Stop for a moment. Do not rush past this message. That chapter did not end because you were forgotten. It ended because God saw what your heart could not see. You called it a loss. Heaven called it a rescue. Stay with me, because the reason behind that ending will change how you see everything that happened. You have been asking one painful question. Why did God allow it to end? You prayed for restoration. You waited for movement. You believed the silence would eventually break. But instead of receiving the answer you expected, you watched a door close that once seemed connected to your destiny. Something inside you still struggles with that ending. You continue moving through your days, but part of your heart remains behind. It returns to old memories. It studies old conversations. And when the world becomes quiet, you wonder whether you should have fought harder to keep everything together. You needed a new beginning, not because everything behind you was meaningless, but because everything ahead requires a different version of you. The person who survived that chapter cannot lead the next one in the same way. God is not erasing your story. He is separating your wisdom from your wounds. Before this message ends, you will understand why the door had to close. You will recognize the signs that the chapter is truly complete. You will also discover the hidden promise you made during your pain, because that promise may still be shaping your choices without your awareness. Then you will be given words to release what God has already completed. Those words will not dishonor your past. They will place it where it belongs. Your memories can remain without becoming your master. Your love can remain without becoming a chain. Your wisdom can remain without carrying the wound. Listen carefully. The greatest danger is not that the old chapter will return. The greatest danger is that you will enter a new season while still thinking like the person who was wounded in the old one. A new door cannot produce a new life when an expired identity keeps making every decision. You have felt this conflict. One part of you wants to move forward. Another part keeps asking for one more explanation. You want peace, but you also want the people who hurt you to understand what they did. You want freedom, but you still imagine the apology that might make everything feel complete. That is why your heart has felt divided. You have not been standing between two people or two opportunities. You have been standing between two identities. One identity was formed through survival. The other is being formed through surrender, clarity, boundaries, and a deeper obedience to God. There are mornings when you wake up already tired. Your body rested, but your mind traveled through the night. It returned to places you promised to leave. It replayed moments that cannot be changed, and it searched for an answer hidden inside words that were spoken many months ago. You open your eyes, but the old atmosphere is already there. The room is different. The day is new, yet the weight feels familiar. And before your feet touch the floor, your mind has already begun asking whether the ending could have been prevented. You may check your phone without admitting what you expect to find. You may look for a name, a message, or a sign. You tell yourself that you are only curious. But beneath that curiosity is a quiet hope that something from the old chapter will reach through time and call you back. Sometimes you imagine the conversation that never happened. You know exactly what you would say. You imagine their expression. You imagine the moment they finally understand your heart, your loyalty, and everything you carried without complaining. For a few seconds, that imagined conversation feels more real than the life around you. Then, reality returns. Nothing has changed. The message did not come. The door remains closed, and you are left carrying the same question into another evening. Was it really over, or did you simply stop too soon? Chosen one, hear this with tenderness. Your desire for an explanation does not make you weak. It reveals how deeply you cared. You did not walk away easily because you do not love carelessly. When you commit your heart, you bring your prayers, your loyalty, your patience, and your hope with it. That depth is part of your gift. But every gift needs discernment. Loyalty without discernment becomes captivity. Patience without boundaries becomes permission for repeated harm. Hope without truth can keep a person standing before a door that God has already sealed for their protection. You were not foolish for believing. You were not wrong for praying. You were not weak for hoping that something beautiful could be restored. But God knew the difference between restoration and repetition, even when your love made those two things look the same. Restoration produces truth, responsibility, and transformation. Repetition only brings the same wound, wearing different clothes. God saw the pattern beneath the promises. He saw what happened when no one else was present. He heard the conversations that never reached your ears. He knew what your future would become if that pattern continued. You only saw the chapter you were losing. God saw the life that chapter was delaying. You saw the familiar faces, the shared history, and the plans you had already imagined. God saw the parts of you becoming smaller each time you tried to preserve what no longer carried peace. There were moments when you silenced your own discernment. Something felt wrong, but you explained it away. Your spirit became uncomfortable, but you called it fear. Your energy changed after certain conversations, but you blamed yourself for being too sensitive. You kept adjusting. You became quieter. You asked for less. You learned how to read the room before speaking honestly. And because you wanted peace, you often abandoned your own peace to prevent someone else from becoming uncomfortable. That was not love. It was survival wearing the language of love. It taught you that connection had to be earned through self-abandonment. It convinced you that being chosen required you to accept confusion. But divine connection does not demand the destruction of divine identity. You may have noticed how often you defended people who never defended you. You explained their behavior to those who could see the truth. You protected their image while your own heart was breaking. And whenever someone asked whether you were happy, you offered an answer that kept everyone from looking deeper. Heaven saw every moment. God saw the tears you wiped away before anyone entered the room. He saw the nights when you prayed for strength instead of asking for escape. He saw how often you carried responsibility for problems you did not create. You kept believing that greater patience would create a different result. You thought another conversation might produce understanding. You thought more kindness might awaken their conscience. Yet every time you gave more, the distance between your true self and your survival identity became wider. That distance exhausted you. It was not only the situation that made you tired. It was the constant effort required to ignore what your spirit already knew. Discernment kept speaking. Fear kept negotiating. And your heart remained caught between truth and attachment. This may have happened in a relationship. It may have happened in a career. It may have involved a friendship, a family system, a ministry, or a dream you carried for years. The details may differ, but the spiritual pattern remains the same. You were trying to receive new fruit from a season that had stopped growing. You kept watering familiar ground because your memories told you something precious once lived there. But a place can be meaningful and still become empty. A chapter can be sacred and still reach its final page. You have struggled to accept that truth because endings feel personal. When something leaves, the mind often creates an accusation. It says you were not valuable enough. It says someone else would have been able to save it. It says the closed door is evidence that heaven denied you. That accusation is false. The ending was not a measurement of your worth. It was a boundary around your future. God did not close the door to humiliate you. He closed it because your calling could no longer breathe inside that room. You were growing beyond the agreement that once kept you there. Your standards were changing. Your discernment was becoming sharper. The things you once tolerated began to disturb your peace. And the version of you that accepted confusion could no longer survive the awakening taking place within you. That is why familiar spaces began to feel unfamiliar. Conversations that once satisfied you started feeling empty. People you once chased no longer inspired the same hunger. You could still love them, but something inside you stopped recognizing that place as home. This change frightened you. You wondered whether you were becoming cold, You questioned whether your heart was closing, but your heart was not dying. It was learning the difference between compassion and access, between forgiveness and permission, between love and self-abandonment. There is a holy moment when God allows discomfort to become stronger than attachment. That moment does not always feel peaceful. Sometimes it feels like restlessness. Sometimes it feels like grief without a clear reason. Sometimes it feels like an urgent desire to be alone. You may have withdrawn from conversations that once consumed your attention. Crowds became exhausting. Noise felt heavier. You wanted silence, but you did not know what you were listening for. Your spirit was making room before your mind understood what was being removed. You may have awakened between 3 and 4 in the morning. The house was quiet, but your thoughts were alive. A memory appeared without warning. A name entered your mind. Then, a strange stillness followed, as if heaven were waiting for you to stop resisting something already decided. Those hours were not given so you could return to the past. They were invitations to notice what the daytime noise kept hiding. In the silence, your spirit could finally admit that the chapter had changed. The truth was present, even when your emotions were not ready to agree. You may also have dreamed about old houses, locked rooms, long hallways, bridges, trains, or doors that would not open. Perhaps you saw people from another season. Perhaps you were packing, leaving, or searching for something you could not find. Do not build your life around every dream, but notice the repeated message beneath them. Your inner world has been processing an ending that your conscious mind continues to debate. The scenery changes, but the instruction remains. Something is asking to be released. You have also noticed repeating numbers, familiar songs, sudden memories, or unusual moments of recognition. These signs did not arrive to make you chase what left. They arrived because transition heightens awareness. Your spirit is searching for language to understand the space between what ended and what has not yet appeared. That space can feel lonely. You no longer belong to the old season, but the new one has not fully introduced itself. People around you may not understand. They see your life from the outside. They do not feel the invisible movement taking place within your identity. You may smile during the day and grieve at night. You may encourage everyone else while privately questioning your own future. You know how to speak faith over another person, but when silence enters your own room, your confidence becomes harder to hold. You are not broken. You are between assignments. The old language no longer explains you, and the new language is still forming. This is why everything feels unfamiliar. God is not leaving you without an identity. He is removing an identity that was built around endurance alone. For a long time, you were known as the strong one. You solved problems. You absorbed tension. You knew what everyone needed before they asked. And because you carried so much with grace, people forgot that the strong one also needs somewhere safe to rest. You became the emotional shelter for people who never learned how to shelter you. You listened carefully. You forgave repeatedly. You offered wisdom, even while your own heart was bleeding. Yet when you needed the same tenderness, the room often became strangely empty. God saw that imbalance. He knew it could not continue into your next chapter. The future prepared for you requires relationships that can honor your depth without feeding upon it. It requires spaces where your honesty is not punished and your boundaries are not treated like betrayal. This is why some people became distant when you started healing. They were comfortable with your sacrifice. They knew how to relate to the version of you that never said no. But when your spirit began asking for truth, those connections could no longer hide their real foundation. Their departure was painful. It may still hurt. But every departure is not rejection. Some departures are revelation. They show you who was connected to your heart and who was connected only to your availability. There is another sign you have been carrying. You no longer enjoy explaining yourself. Once, you rehearsed long speeches in your mind. You wanted everyone to understand your intentions. Now something inside you becomes quiet when misunderstanding appears. That quietness is not defeat. It is the beginning of freedom. You are learning that truth does not become false because another person refuses to acknowledge it. Your identity does not lose value because someone benefits from seeing you incorrectly. Still, there are moments when the old need returns. You want to defend yourself. You want to correct the story. You want the people who judged your silence to know what really happened. That desire is human, but it cannot become the doorway back into captivity. Some people will never understand the version of you they helped create. They remember the person who tolerated everything. They remember the one who stayed quiet. When you change, they may call your healing pride, because your previous pain made their lives easier. Let them misunderstand for a season. God does not need their agreement to begin your restoration. The door ahead will not ask whether everyone behind you approves. It will only ask whether you are willing to stop carrying their voices into rooms they were never assigned to enter. You have also been comparing every new possibility with what ended. A new person appears, and you search for familiar traits. A new opportunity arrives, and you measure it against the plan you lost. Even peace can feel suspicious when your nervous system became accustomed to uncertainty. This is how an old chapter continues without physically returning. It becomes the standard used to judge everything new. If the new feels different, you distrust it. If it feels peaceful, you call it boring. If it asks you to receive instead of chase, you wonder whether it is real. God is teaching you another language. Peace is not emptiness. Consistency is not weakness. Clarity is not a lack of passion. The new beginning may not carry the intensity of the old chapter because it was not designed to wound you before it welcomes you. You must not confuse familiar pain with divine connection. Familiarity can create powerful emotion. It can make a harmful pattern feel like home. But God is not restoring you so you can become more comfortable inside the same cycle. You are a cycle breaker. That means some endings will feel deeper in your life because you are not only leaving a moment, you are interrupting a pattern. You are refusing to pass the same fear, silence, self-abandonment, and emotional hunger into another generation. Cycle breakers often grieve what they release. They do not always feel brave. Sometimes they shake while closing the door. Sometimes they cry after choosing themselves. Courage is not the absence of grief. It is obedience that continues while grief is present. You have wondered why God did not remove the pain immediately. The reason is not cruelty. Instant relief can hide an unhealed agreement. God is not only changing your environment, He is revealing every belief that made the old environment feel necessary. One belief told you that love must be difficult to be valuable. Another told you that patience means accepting endless confusion. Another whispered that leaving makes you disloyal. These beliefs did not begin with the last chapter, but that chapter exposed how deeply they were rooted. The ending brought those roots into the light. That is why it felt so intense. You were not only grieving a person, a place, or a plan. You were grieving the identity that believed safety would finally come if you could make that chapter work. Now God is teaching you that safety cannot depend upon another person becoming honest. Peace cannot wait for someone else to become accountable. Your future cannot remain suspended until the past gives you permission to move. There is a difference between remembering and returning. You can remember what was beautiful. You can honor what you learned. You can even remain grateful for moments that helped shape you. But gratitude does not require you to rebuild a place God has already dismantled. You are allowed to bless what ended. You are allowed to grieve it. You are allowed to admit that part of you still misses it. Healing does not require false strength. It requires honest surrender. God is not asking you to pretend the chapter meant nothing. He is asking you to stop treating its ending as proof that your future has nothing. One chapter closed. Your calling did not. One relationship changed. Your capacity to love did not disappear. One plan failed. Your purpose did not fail with it. One door closed. Heaven did not run out of doors. What ended was a structure, not the promise over your life. The promise is still moving, but it may no longer arrive through the form you expected. This is where many chosen ones become stuck. They recognize the promise, but they worship the form. They believe the blessing must arrive through a specific person, place, or opportunity. When that form disappears, they assume the promise disappeared too. But God is greater than the form. He can preserve the purpose while changing the path. He can honor the prayer while refusing the method you imagined. And sometimes the answer feels like an ending, because God is protecting the promise from the container that could no longer carry it. Think about the wife of Lot. Her feet were moving towards safety, but her attention remained behind. The story is often told only as a warning, but there is also a mirror inside it. Physical distance does not guarantee emotional release. She left the city, yet the city had not fully left her. Her body crossed the boundary, but some part of her identity still belonged to what was burning. The lesson is not that grief makes someone evil. The lesson is that attachment can freeze movement when heaven is calling a person forward. You have crossed boundaries with your feet. You stopped calling. You left the place. You accepted the ending publicly, but privately, your attention still turns around. It searches the smoke for something worth returning to rescue. Chosen one, you cannot rescue a chapter that God has completed. You can only lose your movement by standing between obedience and memory. God is not demanding that you forget. He is asking you to stop building your future while facing backward. There was a time when looking back helped you understand. Now looking back only reopens the same question. You have gathered the lesson. You have seen the pattern. You have received enough evidence to know that returning would not restore your peace. The remaining ache is not a command to go back. Pain is not always direction. Missing someone is not always permission. Feeling unfinished does not mean God left the work incomplete. Sometimes heaven completes a chapter before your emotions learn how to recognize the ending. Your feelings are catching up with a decision already made in the spiritual realm. That is why peace arrives in waves. One day you feel free. The next day a memory returns, and the grief feels new. This does not mean you are starting over. Healing moves through layers. Each layer reveals another place where the old chapter attached itself to your identity. A song may uncover one layer. A date may uncover another. A dream may reveal a fear you never named. Do not punish yourself when these moments come. Notice them, bless them, then let them pass. A memory can visit without receiving permission to move back into your life. You are learning how to feel without obeying every feeling. You are learning how to remember without reopening every door. You are learning how to love without surrendering your discernment. This is the inner architecture of your new beginning. The new beginning is not only a new event, it is a new response. The old you chased clarity from people. The new you receives clarity from truth. The old you feared silence. The new you recognizes silence as a place where false attachments lose their power. The old you believed closure had to come from a final conversation. The new you understands that closure can come through revelation. It can arrive when you finally see that the same pattern would have continued, no matter how beautifully the next promise was spoken. This realization may sting, let it. Truth can hurt before it heals, but it does not wound like deception. Deception keeps you circling. Truth gives the pain a direction, and that direction is forward. You are not moving forward because the past was worthless. You are moving because its assignment is complete. The lesson has been delivered. The pattern has been exposed. The strength has been formed. Remaining there would no longer be loyalty. It would be delay. And delay has already cost you enough. It has taken sleep. It has taken attention. It has made simple decisions feel heavy. It has kept your spirit waiting for confirmation that God already placed inside you. There are opportunities you could not recognize because your mind was still negotiating with yesterday. There are relationships you could not receive because part of you remained emotionally unavailable. There are ideas you dismissed because the old chapter trained you to doubt your own discernment. God is not condemning you for that delay. He is awakening you from it. This message is not an accusation. It is an invitation to notice how much of your energy has been spent maintaining a connection to something that no longer has permission to define you. Take a slow breath. Let your shoulders soften. You do not have to solve the entire future right now. You only need enough courage to agree that the old chapter cannot remain the author of your next decision. That agreement begins quietly. It begins when you stop checking for the message. It begins when you stop rehearsing the defense. It begins when you allow a peaceful opportunity to be peaceful without searching for hidden danger. It begins when you no longer need the people behind you to recognize the person you are becoming. It begins when your private life matches the release you announced publicly. It begins when your attention finally crosses the boundary your feet crossed long ago. You may not feel completely ready. Readiness is not the requirement. Honesty is. Can you admit that something is over, even while a part of you still wishes it had ended differently? Can you admit that returning would not produce the future you desire? Can you bless the lesson without asking to repeat the test? Can you trust that God saw the full road while you only saw the next few steps? If your spirit recognizes this message, write, "I release the old chapter." Do not write it as a performance. Write it as a quiet agreement with truth. Let those words mark the moment when your attention begins turning toward the life that is still waiting for you. This is only the first layer. The closed door is not the deepest revelation. What matters now is why God refused to let that chapter continue, because He saw something behind it that your grief could not yet see. Stay here. The next truth will reframe the entire ending. God did not only remove you from something painful. He was protecting a new identity that could never have survived inside the room you kept asking Him to reopen. Chosen one. The door did not close because heaven stopped listening. It closed because God had already answered a question your emotions were still asking. You kept asking whether the chapter could be repaired. God was asking whether remaining there would repair or destroy the person you were becoming. There is mercy inside some endings. It does not feel like mercy at first. It feels like silence, rejection, confusion, and the sudden collapse of everything familiar. But mercy is not always gentle when it arrives. Sometimes mercy must interrupt a pattern that kindness alone could not persuade you to leave. You wanted God to change the people around you. Instead, He began changing what you were willing to tolerate. You wanted the atmosphere to become peaceful. Instead, your discernment became too strong to keep pretending the atmosphere was safe. You wanted another sign to stay. Heaven kept giving you reasons to release. You wanted the old door to open with different conditions. God knew that even a better version of that door would still lead into the same room. This is the first reframe you must receive. The ending was not punishment. It was protection. The silence was not abandonment. It was separation from instructions that had expired. The loss was not proof that you had prayed incorrectly. It was clearing. God was removing what occupied the emotional space needed for your next assignment. What felt empty was being prepared, even while you could not see what would eventually fill it. You were not losing everything. You were losing what could not travel with you. Some habits could not continue. Some loyalties had become unhealthy. Some expectations were built around a version of you that heaven was already teaching you to outgrow. That is why the old chapter became uncomfortable before it ended. The discomfort was not meaningless. It was the first evidence that your spirit no longer fit the agreement holding that chapter together. You were changing before the circumstances changed. You began noticing things you once ignored. Words sounded different. Promises felt lighter. Apologies without change stopped comforting you. The same explanations that once calmed your fears could no longer silence your discernment. At first, you blamed yourself. You wondered whether you had become impatient. You questioned whether your standards had become too high. You thought spiritual maturity meant accepting everything without protest. But maturity does not require self-abandonment. Forgiveness does not cancel wisdom. compassion does not remove the need for boundaries. God can teach you to love someone while also teaching you that love does not require unlimited access. Before we go deeper, I want to be honest with you. I will not keep a useful resource hidden until the final moments, just to create suspense. Some of you already recognize that the struggle is not only emotional. Your mind has remained trapped in old patterns even after your circumstances changed. There is a practical tool connected to the clarity we are discussing. I am naming it early so you can make your own decision without pressure. It is called the Genius Song. Dr. Robert Lake created it as a 7-minute audio experience designed around brain entrainment and the reactivation of gamma activity. The purpose is simple. It is intended to help quiet mental noise and support the kind of clear attention that becomes difficult after long seasons of stress, confusion, and delayed decisions. It does not replace your faith. It does not make choices for you. It is simply presented as a support for a mind trying to become available to truth again. If something inside you already recognizes that kind of support, the path is available in the description and the pinned comment. You do not need to leave this message. Stay if you need the full context, because the deeper issue is not the tool itself. The deeper issue is understanding what must be released before clarity can guide your next step. Now return to the closed door. God was not merely removing an external situation. He was exposing an internal agreement. The chapter could end around you, but its rules could continue living within you. Those rules shaped how you loved. They shaped what you feared. They shaped what you expected from people and what you believed you had to do to deserve peace. Unless those rules are named, a person can enter a new room and quietly rebuild the old one. This is why some new beginnings feel strangely familiar. The faces change, the location changes, the promise sounds different, but the emotional pattern returns because the survival identity remains in control. You may choose another person who requires you to prove your worth. You may enter another opportunity where your voice becomes smaller. You may call it a new chapter, but your old beliefs continue writing every page. God does not want cosmetic change for you. He does not want a new environment carrying the same captivity. He is not only changing what surrounds you, He is changing what you agree to within yourself. This is where the story of Joseph becomes important. Joseph received a dream before he possessed the character, wisdom, and position required to carry it. The dream was real, but the road toward it looked like repeated endings. First, the familiar life with his family ended. The coat connected to favor was torn away. The protection of home disappeared. He was lowered into a pit while the people closest to him decided that his future could be sold. Imagine that moment. Joseph could still remember the dream. He could still remember how certain it felt. Yet everything visible now appeared to contradict what God had shown him. The pit did not resemble preparation. It resembled betrayal. The journey into Egypt did not resemble promotion. It resembled the destruction of identity, security, family, and every expectation he carried. But the pit was not the final chapter. It was a doorway between identities. Joseph could not enter Egypt only as the protected son, wearing a special coat. He would need discernment, restraint, administrative wisdom, patience, and authority. Those qualities were not developed through comfort. They were formed while familiar definitions were being removed. Joseph had to discover who he was when the coat disappeared, when family approval disappeared, and when no one around him understood the dream. Then, another chapter opened in the house of Potiphar. For a moment, it appeared that stability had returned. Joseph was trusted. Responsibility increased. His gifts became visible again. This looked like the restoration. It looked like the reason behind the pit. But then accusation entered the story, and another door closed. Joseph lost a position he had served faithfully, even though he had chosen integrity, chosen one. This is where many people lose faith in the process. They can survive one ending, because they expect the next chapter to explain everything. But when the next chapter also closes, they assume heaven has abandoned the promise. Joseph could have believed that obedience had failed him. He did the right thing, yet the result was prison. He protected his integrity, yet his reputation was attacked. He honored God, yet another season was taken away. But prison was not evidence that integrity had failed. Prison placed him near the people connected to his next instruction. The location looked lower, but the assignment was moving closer to the palace. This is the mystery of divine redirection. A chapter can close while purpose continues. A position can disappear while preparation deepens. People can misread you while heaven moves you toward a room where your gift will finally be understood. Joseph interpreted dreams in prison. The gift did not disappear because the environment became dark. He used what remained. He served where he stood. He did not need the prison to resemble the palace before he allowed purpose to operate. Then he was forgotten again. The cupbearer left and did not immediately remember him. Another silence began. Another opportunity appeared to vanish. Joseph had done everything correctly, but the expected connection produced no immediate result. That silence could have become bitterness. It could have convinced him to stop using his gift. Yet the delay protected the timing. If Joseph had been released too early, he might have returned to an ordinary life before Pharaoh required the wisdom only he could provide. The forgotten season was not empty. It held him in position until the question matching his gift arrived. When the moment came, years of apparent delay collapsed into one day of acceleration. Joseph entered the palace without the coat, without family approval, and without control over how the journey unfolded. But he entered with something greater. He carried an identity no longer dependent upon comfort, applause, or immediate understanding. That is what God has been building in you. You thought the ending removed your value. It removed the conditions upon which you had placed your value. It revealed whether you could still recognize your calling when familiar people no longer confirmed it. You are learning that purpose does not disappear when a position ends. Wisdom does not disappear when a relationship ends. Your capacity to love does not disappear when someone mishandles it. The gift remains, even when the container changes. This truth matters because you have been staring at the broken container. You have been asking why it could not hold what you carried. But some containers break because they were never designed for the weight of your next season. You cannot keep pouring new revelation into an old agreement. You cannot carry greater discernment while promising to ignore it. You cannot ask God for healthy connection while continuing to call emotional confusion love. This is the first sign that a chapter has truly completed. God removes peace from what once felt familiar. The place may look the same. The person may speak the same words. The opportunity may still appear attractive. Yet something within you cannot rest there anymore. Your spirit becomes unsettled. You feel a quiet resistance. What once drew you now drains you, even when you cannot immediately explain why. This loss of peace is not always fear. Fear usually becomes frantic and demands immediate control. Discernment can be quieter. It simply refuses to celebrate what your deeper wisdom no longer trusts. You may try to force the old feeling to return. You revisit memories. You recreate old conversations. You place yourself near familiar people. But the connection no longer carries the same life. That does not mean every beautiful moment was false. It means the assignment changed. A place can serve you for one season and become restrictive in another. A relationship can teach you something real without being designed to accompany your entire journey. The old chapter may have given you strength, language, compassion, or wisdom. Honor those gifts. But do not confuse gratitude for a lesson with permission to remain inside the classroom forever. There comes a moment when learning requires leaving. The lesson becomes complete. The door closes. And if you keep returning, you are no longer honoring the lesson. You are repeating the examination. This repetition is often disguised as hope. You tell yourself that people can change. That is true. You tell yourself that God can restore anything. That is also true. But possibility alone is not instruction. God can restore a situation, but that does not mean every situation has been assigned for restoration. Sometimes the miracle is not that the old chapter survives. Sometimes the miracle is that you finally do. You survived without becoming cruel. You survived without losing your ability to care. You survived disappointment while still believing that goodness exists. The chapter took many things, but it did not take the light God placed within you. Now that light needs protection. It cannot remain available to every person who knows how to create guilt. It cannot keep pouring into spaces where accountability never appears. Your gentleness is sacred, but sacred things require wise stewardship. This does not make you selfish. It makes you responsible. You are responsible for the peace God is restoring. You are responsible for the boundaries that protect your next assignment. You are also responsible for noticing when nostalgia becomes deception. Nostalgia edits the past. It highlights the warmth and softens the warning signs. It remembers the promise but forgets the pattern. It shows you the best days. It hides the nights when you felt alone beside someone. It reminds you how hopeful the beginning felt. It removes the exhaustion that eventually taught you the truth. That is why you must remember honestly. Do not remember only the pain. Do not remember only the beauty. Hold the entire chapter before God, because truth requires the full picture. There were moments of joy. There were lessons worth keeping. There may have been love, but there was also confusion, imbalance, silence, and a repeated invitation to abandon yourself. When you hold the whole story, the ending begins to make sense. You stop asking why one good memory could not save everything. You understand that isolated beauty cannot repair a foundation that repeatedly rejects truth. The story of Ruth gives us another view of a new beginning. Ruth did not leave Moab because she possessed a complete map. She left because remaining would keep her inside a chapter where grief had already spoken its final word. Naomi had lost her husband and her sons. Ruth had lost her husband. Their future appeared empty. Nothing about the road ahead guaranteed comfort, provision, acceptance, or belonging. Ruth stood at a threshold. One direction offered familiarity, the other offered uncertainty. Returning to Moab may have seemed practical, but something within her recognized that her assignment was moving with Naomi. She did not receive the entire future in that moment. She did not see the field of Boaz. She did not see the protection, provision, marriage, or legacy waiting beyond the journey. She only saw the next faithful step. This is how many new beginnings arrive. They do not introduce themselves with complete explanations. They ask whether you can obey before you can predict. You keep asking God for the whole picture because the old chapter taught you to fear surprises. You want proof that the next road will not hurt. You want certainty before movement. But certainty is not always available at the threshold. Sometimes God gives peace instead. The path remains unknown, but the old place no longer carries peace. The new direction feels unfamiliar, yet your spirit becomes quieter when you consider it. Ruth did not need Moab to become evil before she could leave. She only needed to recognize that her future was no longer rooted there. This matters for you. You may be waiting for the past to become completely unbearable before you permit yourself to move forward. But a chapter does not need to become entirely dark before it becomes complete. Something can contain goodness and still be finished. Someone can possess beautiful qualities and still be unable to walk with you. An opportunity can once have been right and still become wrong for the person you are becoming. Completion is not condemnation. It simply means the assignment reached its boundary. Wisdom knows how to honor what was without demanding that it remain what will be. Ruth moved without knowing that her ordinary act of faithfulness would become part of a generational story. Her next chapter began with loss, travel, uncertainty, and humble work in a field. There was no immediate celebration. She gathered what others left behind. She moved quietly. Yet every small act positioned her near provision she could not have arranged through force. Your new beginning may also look ordinary at first. It may begin with a new routine. It may begin with a boundary no one celebrates. It may begin when you delete a conversation, stop checking a page, or finally rest without waiting for permission. Do not despise quiet beginnings. The old chapter may have trained you to recognize intensity as importance, but heaven often places destiny inside ordinary obedience. A field can become a meeting place. A small decision can redirect a bloodline. A quiet no can protect years of future peace. A single act of release can create space for relationships that do not require you to disappear. You are searching for a dramatic sign, but the first sign may be simple. You feel less willing to betray your own peace. You notice that confusion no longer excites you. You begin choosing consistency over potential. You stop falling in love with promises unsupported by action. You no longer need to rescue people who refuse responsibility for their own healing. This change can feel lonely because it reduces the number of people who can reach you. Yet fewer connections do not mean less love. They may mean greater alignment. When access becomes intentional, your energy stops leaking into endless emergencies. Your attention returns. Your creativity begins breathing again. You rediscover thoughts that had been buried beneath the needs of everyone around you. This is part of the mercy inside the ending. God is returning your attention to you. For years, your mind may have belonged to other people. You monitored their moods. You predicted their reactions. You shaped your words around their comfort. Now silence feels strange because you are no longer managing everyone. At first, peace can feel like emptiness. You may even create unnecessary problems because chaos feels more familiar than rest. Do not run from that quiet. Remain there long enough for your spirit to understand that peace is safe. You do not need a crisis to prove your value. You do not need to rescue someone to deserve connection. The next chapter will require another rhythm. It will require you to receive without suspicion. It will require you to allow people to show effort instead of doing all the work for them. It will require you to notice reciprocity. It will teach you that healthy love does not keep one person constantly guessing. Healthy purpose does not demand endless self-betrayal. You may feel resistance as these truths enter. That resistance is not proof they are wrong. It may be the sound of an old identity realizing that its authority is ending. The survival identity kept you functioning. Honor it. It helped you read danger. It taught you how to endure. It gave you tools when you had very little support. But a protector can become a prison when it refuses to leave after the danger has passed. Hyper-awareness can make peaceful people look suspicious. Independence can prevent safe support. Emotional distance can protect you from pain, while also blocking connection. God is not shaming the person you became to survive. He is inviting that person to rest. The battle skills were useful, but the next chapter cannot be built entirely like a battlefield. You do not need armor at every table. You do not need an escape plan inside every conversation. You do not need to interpret every pause as rejection. This transformation takes honesty. You must notice the moments when the old chapter speaks through your reactions. A delayed reply may awaken an old fear. A new opportunity may trigger the memory of a previous failure. A kind person may feel unfamiliar because they do not create the emotional tension you once called chemistry. A stable environment may feel too quiet because you learn to associate movement with conflict. Pause in those moments. Do not let the past choose automatically. Ask whether the present is truly unsafe or simply unfamiliar. Your discernment is becoming cleaner. Fear shouts about everything. Discernment speaks specifically. Fear tells you to close every door. Discernment shows you which door has no peace. Fear isolates you from support. Discernment protects you from counterfeit access. Fear uses the past as prophecy. Discernment uses the past as wisdom without allowing it to become destiny. This is why God had to end the chapter. Remaining there would have kept fear and discernment tangled together. You would have continued calling survival, wisdom, and self-abandonment love. The ending created distance. Distance created perspective. Perspective is allowing you to name what proximity forced you to normalize. You can now see how often you abandoned your own knowing. You can see how many times peace left before you did. You can see that the ending was not sudden in heaven, even if it felt sudden in your life. There were signs. The conversations changed. Joy required more effort. Your body became tense around what your mouth kept defending. You began needing long periods of recovery after ordinary interactions. You could feel yourself becoming smaller. You knew something was ending, but attachment kept asking for another chance. God was patient with you. He did not despise your struggle. He understood that release would touch more than one relationship or opportunity. It would touch your identity, your hopes, and the future you had already imagined. That imagined future deserves to be grieved. You were not only losing what existed, you were losing what you thought would exist. You lost birthdays that never happened, conversations that never came, plans that remained unfinished, and versions of yourself you expected to become inside that chapter. Invisible losses can create real grief. Give that grief language, but do not give it leadership. Let it speak without allowing it to choose your next direction. The hidden agreement often forms during this kind of loss. It sounds reasonable because it promises protection. It may say that you will never trust deeply again. It may say that happiness is only possible if the old chapter returns. It may say that your value will remain uncertain until the people who rejected you finally recognize what they lost. Perhaps your agreement says that beginning again would betray everything you invested. Perhaps it says that releasing them means admitting the love was never real. These are not truths. They are vows made by a wounded heart trying to prevent another wound. They deserve compassion, but they cannot be allowed to govern your future. We will name that agreement more clearly when the time is right. For now, understand this. The past is not holding you only through memories. It may be holding you through a rule you created while you were in pain. That rule can follow you into every new relationship, opportunity, and decision. It can make you reject peace before peace has the chance to prove itself. This is why God is moving slowly through your healing. He is not delaying your new beginning. He is preventing you from carrying an invisible contract across the threshold. You are not being denied. You are being prepared. Preparation does not always add something. Sometimes it removes what would sabotage the blessing after it arrives. God removes desperation so you do not mistake attention for love. He removes the need to prove yourself so you do not accept opportunities built upon exploitation. He removes attachment to one outcome so you can recognize provision arriving through another form. He removes your dependence upon external closure so your peace can no longer be controlled by someone else. This is mercy. It may have arrived through an ending, but its purpose is restoration. It is restoring your attention. It is restoring your standards. It is restoring your ability to hear truth without negotiating against it. You are beginning to understand why the door became heavy. God was not trying to keep you from love, purpose, abundance, or belonging. He was keeping you from carrying an expired identity into places where it would recreate the same pain. The first sign is now clear. A chapter is completing when peace leaves what once felt familiar. You may still care. You may still remember. But your spirit can no longer rest there. The second sign is approaching. It will explain why things that once nourished you now leave you exhausted. It will reveal why certain conversations, places, and patterns have become too heavy to carry. But the third sign is deeper than both. It is not about the door, the person, or the opportunity. It is about what happens when you no longer need the past to apologize before you permit the future to begin. Stay close. God did not only lead you out of an old place. He is now removing that place from your reactions, your expectations, and your identity. The next chapter cannot be understood until you see what the wilderness between those identities was designed to accomplish. Chosen one, there is a sacred distance between the life that ended and the life that has not fully appeared. You are standing inside that distance now. The old identity no longer fits, but the new identity still feels unfamiliar. This is why even simple decisions have carried unusual weight. You are not lost. You are between assignments. The map that guided your previous season cannot explain the road ahead. Familiar instincts keep offering old directions, but your spirit knows those directions would return you to a place God has already completed. This space can feel empty. It can make you question whether you heard God correctly. You released what was familiar, yet the promised relief did not immediately arrive. You expected movement. Instead, you entered silence. The silence is not evidence that nothing is happening. It is where false identities lose their voice. When the usual people, routines, and emotional patterns become unavailable, you begin hearing the beliefs that were hidden beneath them. Some of those beliefs sound like your own voice. They tell you to stay guarded. They tell you that peace is temporary. They tell you that every new person will eventually repeat the actions of someone from the past. Other beliefs tell you to hurry. They say you must replace what ended before loneliness exposes you. They push you toward quick decisions, familiar connections, and opportunities that resemble relief but carry no real alignment. This is why the wilderness matters. It slows you down long enough to separate desire from desperation. It teaches you to recognize whether a decision comes from peace or from the fear of being left without anything familiar. You may dislike the wilderness because it gives you very little control. You cannot force the next door. You cannot make the old one become safe. You cannot command another person to develop the honesty required for restoration. All you can control is your agreement. You can decide what receives access to your thoughts. You can decide which voice becomes authority. You can decide whether grief will be honored as an emotion or obeyed as an instruction. The wilderness removes distractions from that decision. It reveals what you believe when no one is applauding. It shows whether you trust God only when the path is visible, or whether you can remain faithful when your next identity is still forming. The children of Israel experienced this same conflict. They left Egypt physically, but Egypt continued speaking through their reactions. Their chains were gone. Their captors were behind them. Yet the habits of captivity remained active within their minds. They had witnessed deliverance. They crossed a boundary that once looked impossible. The sea opened before them, and the road behind them disappeared beneath the water. No external path back remained, but the desire to return still appeared whenever the wilderness became uncomfortable. This is one of the deepest truths about transition. A closed road does not automatically create a free mind. People can leave captivity while continuing to think like captives. They can receive a new direction while still measuring every challenge through the expectations of the old place. In Egypt, their choices had been controlled. Their days had been defined by survival. They learned to expect pressure, scarcity, punishment, and exhaustion. Those expectations did not disappear simply because the scenery changed. The wilderness exposed them. When food looked uncertain, their minds returned to Egypt. When water became scarce, they questioned deliverance. When leadership required trust, their survival identity demanded something visible to control. They remembered the food of captivity more clearly than the cost of the chains. Painful familiarity began appearing safer than uncertain freedom. This is what an unhealed identity can do. It can edit the past until bondage looks like protection. You have experienced a similar temptation. The old chapter hurt you, but at least you understood its rules. You knew when to stay quiet. You knew how to anticipate conflict. You knew how to earn temporary peace. The new beginning does not operate through those rules. It asks for honesty. It asks for boundaries. It asks you to receive without performing. Because these responses are unfamiliar, part of you may interpret them as dangerous. The old chapter trained you to work for what should have been mutual. It trained you to monitor every emotional shift. It trained you to believe that love could disappear whenever you stopped proving your usefulness. Now God is teaching you that connection can remain without constant performance. This lesson sounds beautiful, but receiving it requires the death of a survival identity that once kept you functioning. That identity is not evil. It was formed to protect you. It learned how to read faces, voices, pauses, and changes in atmosphere. It became highly skilled because mistakes once carried emotional consequences. Perhaps you entered a room and immediately knew who was upset. You noticed tension before anyone spoke. You adjusted your behavior to prevent a reaction. Over time, this sensitivity became automatic. People praised you for being thoughtful. They called you mature, patient, understanding, and strong. They did not always see the fear underneath that maturity. They did not know how exhausting it was to remain responsible for the emotional climate around you. The wilderness removes that responsibility. No one is demanding that you regulate their emotions. No one is asking you to solve another crisis. Yet your body may remain alert, waiting for a problem that never arrives. Peace can initially feel uncomfortable when vigilance has been normal. Silence can feel suspicious. A stable person can seem difficult to read because they are not producing the emotional signals you learned to manage. This does not mean you are incapable of healthy connection. It means your expectations need time to meet your new reality. You are learning that calm does not always hide danger. You are learning that kindness can exist without a secret demand. The wilderness is where this learning becomes possible. It gives your attention space to notice the difference between present truth and remembered fear. It helps you ask a powerful question. Is this moment dangerous? Or does it merely resemble something that once hurt me? That question interrupts automatic reactions. It creates a pause between memory and decision. Inside that pause, discernment can speak without being drowned by the urgency of survival. Fear speaks quickly. It makes everything feel immediate. It says, decide now, escape now, defend now, or return now. Discernment does not need panic to become clear. Discernment may tell you to wait. It may show you one specific inconsistency while allowing the rest of the situation to remain open. It may give peace about a person who does not resemble anyone you expected. You are learning this difference because your next chapter requires clean discernment. It cannot be led by fear, disguised as wisdom. It cannot be built through constant suspicion. God did not bring Israel out of Egypt merely to change their address. He intended to form a people who could carry covenant, responsibility, worship, justice, and generational promise. Their external rescue happened quickly. Their internal formation required time. The sea could remove the Egyptian army in one night, but only repeated trust could remove Egypt from their expectations. You have asked why your healing has taken longer than the ending. The ending was an event. Healing is formation. A door can close in one moment, but the identity shaped behind that door must be gently untangled. Every layer contains another belief. You release the person, then discover you still fear replacement. You release the opportunity, then discover your worth was connected to the title. You release the plan, then discover you believed God could only bless you through that specific path. Nothing is wrong, because another layer appears. The appearance of a layer means enough safety has formed for deeper truth to surface. Do not rush this process. Hurrying can create another version of self-abandonment. You may try to become healed quickly, so no one sees your grief. You may perform strength because vulnerability once felt unsafe. But God is not asking for performance. He is asking for truth. You can be grateful and still sad. You can believe in the future and still miss what ended. You can forgive while maintaining distance. You can release resentment without restoring access. Two truths can exist together without canceling each other. This emotional honesty is part of your new identity. The old identity divided everything into survival choices. Stay or be abandoned. Agree or create conflict. Remain silent or lose connection. The new identity recognizes more possibilities. You can speak truth and allow someone else to respond. You can set a boundary without controlling whether they approve. You can love someone and still accept that their role has ended. The wilderness gives you room to practice these responses before greater doors open. God is not delaying you. He is allowing new patterns to become strong enough to protect what you have asked to receive. Imagine receiving a healthy relationship while still believing love must be earned through exhaustion. You might overgive before trust develops. You might ignore consistency because intensity feels more meaningful. Imagine receiving a greater opportunity while still connecting your worth to approval. You might work until your health and peace disappear. You might accept mistreatment because the title appears connected to purpose. Imagine receiving influence while still needing everyone to understand you. Every criticism would control your attention. Every misunderstanding would pull you away from your assignment. The blessing would arrive, but the old identity would turn it into another place of captivity. This is why preparation is mercy. God is not only considering whether you can receive the next chapter, He is preparing you to remain free inside it. The second sign that the old chapter is complete begins here. What once nourished you now leaves you exhausted. The same conversation produces heaviness. The same environment requires recovery. The same role that once gave meaning now feels like a garment that has become too small. You can still wear it, but you cannot breathe naturally inside it. Something has changed within you. This exhaustion is not always a command to abandon every difficult responsibility. Some assignments require endurance. Some relationships need honest repair. Some seasons are demanding without being wrong. But repeated spiritual depletion carries information. When every interaction requires you to betray your truth, the exhaustion is not only about effort, it is about misalignment. You can feel the difference. Healthy effort may tire your body, but it does not make you disappear. Aligned sacrifice can be difficult, but it does not require you to deny reality. Misalignment produces another kind of fatigue. It scatters your attention. It makes your inner voice quieter. You leave conversations questioning what you clearly understood before they began. You may feel guilty without knowing what you did wrong. You may begin rehearsing how to repair an atmosphere you did not damage. You may lose hours interpreting a few words because uncertainty has become a method of control. This is the exhaustion you are being taught to recognize. Your spirit is no longer willing to finance connection with confusion. It is no longer willing to trade clarity for temporary acceptance. That resistance is a sign of growth. The old identity could survive almost anything. The new identity asks whether survival is the highest purpose available. You were created for more than endurance. You were not placed here only to carry weight for people who refuse to grow. Your strength has purpose, but its purpose is not to make dysfunction comfortable. Some people called you strong because your strength allowed them to remain unchanged. They admired your patience while depending upon your silence. They praised your heart while repeatedly placing burdens upon it. When you began protecting your energy, their language changed. Strength became selfishness. Boundaries became pride. Rest became distance. Your healing threatened an arrangement that benefited from your exhaustion. This reaction gave you information. It showed which connections honored your identity and which connections only valued your availability. It revealed where mutual love existed and where access had been mistaken for entitlement. Do not use that revelation to become bitter. Use it to become wise. Bitterness keeps you emotionally tied to those who hurt you. Wisdom receives the lesson and redirects. The wilderness teaches redirection. Israel could not use every lesson from Egypt as a blueprint for promise. They had to learn another way of gathering, resting, trusting, leading, and relating. They received daily provision, but they could not store it through fear. The pattern challenged scarcity. It required trust for tomorrow without the illusion of controlling everything today. This lesson is still working within you. The old chapter taught you to collect emotional evidence because you feared sudden loss. You saved messages. You remembered every shift. You searched for proof that someone still cared. Now God is teaching you to live from truth instead of emotional scraps. You do not need occasional attention to prove connection. You do not need inconsistent words to survive another week of confusion. Real provision has rhythm. It does not force you to panic every morning. It may require faith, but it does not demand the destruction of your dignity. The wilderness also teaches rest. Captivity valued people only for what they produced. Their worth was measured by labor. Rest challenged that entire system. You may carry the same system within you. When you are not helping, producing, solving, or sacrificing, you become uncomfortable. You wonder whether you still matter. This belief has made rest difficult. Even when your body stops, your mind continues working. It searches for problems. It creates plans. It anticipates needs that no one has expressed. God is teaching you that your value exists before your usefulness. You are loved before you solve anything. You remain chosen when you are quiet. This truth must become more than a beautiful sentence. It must enter your daily responses. It must change what you accept, how quickly you volunteer, and whether you pause before carrying a bracer that was never assigned to you. The wilderness creates that pause. It asks you to stop automatically saying yes. It asks you to notice whether compassion is guiding you or whether fear of rejection is making the decision. You may discover how often fear wore the face of kindness. You said yes because no felt dangerous. You forgave quickly because conflict felt unbearable. You remained available because distance awakened the fear of being forgotten. None of this makes your kindness false. It means kindness became entangled with survival. God is separating them. He is preserving your tenderness while removing the fear beneath it. You will still care, but you will not destroy yourself to prove that care is real. You will still help, but you will recognize when help becomes interference with another person's responsibility. You will still forgive, but forgiveness will no longer mean returning to the same unprotected position. This separation is the inner work of a cycle breaker. You are ending more than an event. You are ending the belief that love requires pain to remain convincing. You are ending the belief that being needed is the same as being valued. You are ending the belief that spiritual obedience requires endless access for people who repeatedly dishonor truth. These beliefs may have traveled through generations. You may have watched people before you remain in harmful patterns because leaving appeared shameful. You may have learned that silence preserved the family while truth threatened it. You may have inherited the role of peacemaker. Everyone brought conflict to you. You carried secrets, softened consequences, and protected appearances. But peace built upon hidden truth is not peace. It is delayed conflict. The cycle breaker does not create destruction by naming reality. The cycle breaker stops destruction from hiding behind tradition. That assignment can feel lonely. People may resist the one who changes the pattern. They may call you difficult because compliance once made everything easier. Stay humble, but do not retreat from clarity. Humility does not require you to deny what God has shown you. It allows you to hold truth without using it as a weapon. Your task is not to punish the people behind you. It is to stop repeating what wounded everyone. You do not need revenge. You need a different response. This is where authority begins. Spiritual authority is not loud. It does not depend upon controlling another person's behavior. It begins when old triggers can no longer command your actions. The message arrives, but you do not abandon your peace. The memory returns, but you do not reopen the door. The accusation appears, but you do not spend the entire day defending your identity. This calm is not weakness. It is evidence that your center is moving. You are no longer organized around the reactions of other people. You are becoming anchored in truth. Your attention is also being restored. Long seasons of stress can train the mind to scan constantly for danger, contradiction, and rejection. When attention remains scattered, clarity becomes difficult even after the threat is gone. You may sit in a peaceful room while your thoughts continue preparing for conflict. You may receive a good opportunity while your mind searches for reasons it will fail. This does not mean you lack faith. It means repeated experience created a pattern of expectation. Spiritual renewal includes learning how to notice that pattern without allowing it to define every conclusion. Your mind needs permission to become still. It needs repeated evidence that the present is not the past. It needs moments where no crisis is created and no danger arrives. Over time, those moments build another expectation. Peace becomes recognizable. Consistency stops feeling suspicious. Your inner world learns that clarity does not need urgency to become trustworthy. This is why stillness has become important in your transition. You are not being asked to become passive. You are learning how to act without panic. Panic creates movement, but it rarely creates direction. Clarity may move more slowly, yet it knows why it is moving. The new beginning requires direction, not emotional speed. You have already lost enough time reacting to what was behind you. God is restoring the space between trigger and response. Inside that space, your wisdom can return. If this message is helping you understand your own transition, share it with someone who keeps calling exhaustion loyalty. Do not share it to expose them. Share it so another chosen one can recognize that release may be an act of obedience. There is someone who has been blaming themselves for becoming tired of the same cycle. They think their exhaustion means they stopped loving. They need to know that love can remain while an assignment ends. You also need to know that your increasing intolerance for confusion is not cruelty. It is a sign that clarity is becoming part of your identity. What once kept you occupied can no longer keep you aligned. The old chapter may try to regain your attention when it senses this change. A person may return with familiar words. An opportunity may reappear with improved conditions. A memory may become unusually vivid. None of these events automatically mean restoration. Sometimes, a returning pattern is not a promise. It is a test of the boundary formed during separation. Do not answer from loneliness. Do not decide from nostalgia. Let consistency reveal what words attempt to hide. Time is not the enemy of truth. What is genuine can survive patient observation. What is counterfeit usually demands immediate access before discernment becomes clear. You are allowed to wait. You are allowed to gather evidence. You are allowed to let behavior speak longer than promises. The old identity fears that waiting will cause abandonment. The new identity understands that anything requiring self-abandonment was never safe enough to hold your future. Keep the restoration tool named earlier in mind. We will return to it after this final truth becomes completely clear. For now, notice what has already changed. You do not respond as quickly as before. You feel the old pull, but another voice has begun speaking. That voice says, you do not have to rescue the situation. It says, silence can protect your peace. It says, a closed door does not need your hand upon the handle every morning. This is the beginning of detachment. Detachment does not mean you feel nothing. It means feeling no longer controls direction. You can miss someone and continue walking. You can remember a place and refuse to return. You can mourn a plan while becoming available to another one. Your emotions are being returned to their proper role. They are witnesses, not rulers. They provide information, but they do not possess the full map. Discernment listens to emotion without surrendering authority to it. Wisdom considers memory without confusing memory with prophecy. The old chapter told you that what happened once would happen everywhere. That is how pain attempts to become destiny. It takes one person's behavior and makes a law about every future connection. It takes one failure and turns it into an identity. It takes one ending and declares that nothing can remain. But pain is not qualified to write universal laws. God is breaking those false laws. One betrayal does not mean loyalty is imaginary. One closed door does not mean every door will close. One period of confusion does not mean clarity is unavailable. One delayed answer does not mean heaven has forgotten your name. Listen carefully, because the next realization determines whether you repeat the chapter or complete it. A new door may already be opening near you. A safe person may already be present. A clear instruction may already be forming. But if the old identity controls your vision, you may reject the new simply because it does not feel like the past. The final barrier is not the absence of opportunity. It is the belief that pain taught you to call protection. You may believe that staying closed is wisdom. You may believe that expecting disappointment keeps you safe. You may believe that needing nothing makes you powerful. These beliefs can prevent obvious pain. They can also prevent love, collaboration, creativity, and divine support. A wall does not ask whether danger or blessing is approaching. It blocks both. This is why God is not satisfied with merely removing the wrong people. Removal is protection, but it is not complete restoration. Restoration teaches you how to remain open without becoming unguarded. It teaches you boundaries without bitterness. It teaches you trust without blindness. It teaches you courage without denial. For a moment, you may think this is the deepest revelation. God removed the wrong people because he wanted to protect you. That truth is real. He saw the manipulation. He saw the inconsistency. He saw the conversations hidden from you. He saw the direction the pattern would eventually take. He protected you from years of additional confusion. He interrupted plans that would have placed your future inside unstable hands. He allowed truth to appear before the cost became greater. Receive that relief. Let yourself recognize the rescue. You were not rejected by heaven. You were removed from an arrangement that could no longer honor your becoming. But do not stop here. Protection from the wrong people is not the deepest reason the chapter ended. If the entire message ended with their wrongdoing, your attention would remain attached to them. You would continue studying their motives. You would continue building identity around what they did. You might become physically free while remaining emotionally organized around the people who hurt you. God is doing something deeper. He is not only exposing their pattern, he is exposing the agreement within you that made the pattern feel necessary. This is not blame. The agreement was formed through pain. It may have protected you once, but it has been making decisions long after the original danger ended. It tells you that you must be useful to remain loved. It tells you that conflict means abandonment. It tells you that a closed heart is the safest heart. It tells you that receiving is dangerous because anything given can later be taken away. It tells you to choose what is familiar because unfamiliar goodness cannot be trusted. These instructions may operate quietly. You do not wake up and consciously choose them. They appear through hesitation, overthinking, withdrawal, overgiving, and delayed obedience. They make you question clear opportunities. They make you pursue unclear people. They keep you busy, solving emotional puzzles, while simple truth waits nearby. Chosen one. This is where the wilderness becomes a mirror. There is no old environment left to blame for every reaction. God allows you to see what the chapter planted inside your expectations. Again, this is not condemnation. You survived the best way you knew. You made promises to yourself because no one else appeared able to protect you. Perhaps you promised never to need anyone again. Perhaps you promised never to trust your heart. Perhaps you decided that success would become the proof that everyone who rejected you was wrong. A promise made in pain can feel like strength. It can create discipline. It can help you endure. But when the season changes, that same promise can become the lock upon the next door. The old chapter is no longer chasing you. The people may be gone. The environment may have changed. The opportunity may be permanently closed. Yet the vow remains. It stands at the threshold and asks every new possibility to pay for what the past did. That is why the new beginning has felt delayed. It is not always because nothing new is present. Something within you may still be demanding that the future guarantee what no human future can guarantee. You want certainty that you will never hurt again. You want proof that no one will misunderstand you. You want assurance that every obedient step will produce an immediate result. God offers guidance, but not complete control. He offers discernment, but not a life without vulnerability. He offers presence, but not permission to avoid every unknown road. The wilderness is teaching you to trust without possessing every answer. It is teaching you to move while your hands remain open. The chapter did not close because you were too weak to keep it. It closed because keeping it required you to remain loyal to an identity built around fear. The door is no longer holding you. The person is no longer deciding your future. The opportunity is no longer withholding your worth. A promise you made in pain is now the final thing asking to be released. And when that promise is named, you will understand why God could not allow the old chapter to continue. Chosen one. The promise made in pain is now standing before you. It does not look dangerous. It sounds protective. It sounds like wisdom shaped by experience. But beneath its careful language is an agreement that has been deciding how close love, opportunity, peace, and support are allowed to come. Perhaps you promised that you would never need anyone again. You remember the moment that promise formed. Someone disappointed you when you were most vulnerable, and independence became the armor that helped you stand. Perhaps you promised that you would never trust your own heart again. You had believed deeply. You had followed what felt sincere. When the chapter ended, you blamed your ability to discern instead of recognizing that another person had hidden important truth. Perhaps you promised that no one would ever see you weak again. You learned how quickly vulnerability could be used against you. From that moment forward, strength became more than a quality. It became the identity you believed was required for survival. Perhaps your promise was quieter. You decided not to expect too much. You believed low expectations could protect you from disappointment. You called it realism. But somewhere inside, hope began receiving punishment for a wound it did not create. These promises helped you survive a season. They reduced uncertainty. They gave you something to control when everything else felt unstable. But a vow created during danger can become a prison after the danger has passed. You do not need to hate the person who made that vow. That person was trying to protect you. Honor their courage. Thank them for carrying you through nights when no one else understood the weight. Then tell them their assignment is complete. The new chapter cannot be governed by emergency instructions. You cannot build a peaceful future while every part of you remains prepared for war. A survival identity asks one question: how do I prevent this pain from happening again? A restored identity asks another question: how do I remain truthful, open, and wise without abandoning myself? The first question builds walls. The second builds boundaries. Walls block everything. Boundaries allow truth to determine what enters and what remains outside. Walls are formed through fear. Boundaries are formed through clarity. A wall says no one can be trusted. A boundary says trust will be built through consistency, honesty, responsibility, and time. God is not asking you to become unprotected. He is teaching you how to protect what is sacred without imprisoning it. Your heart needs discernment, not permanent isolation. Your tenderness is still part of your calling. Your ability to feel deeply is not the problem. The problem began when you believed deep feeling required unlimited access for people who had not demonstrated care. You can remain compassionate without becoming available to manipulation. You can remain forgiving without returning to the same pattern. You can remain loving while accepting that another person's role has ended. This is where the confrontation becomes personal. The old chapter is no longer the primary obstacle. The door closed. The people made their decisions. The opportunity reached its conclusion. What remains is the identity that formed while you were trying to keep everything alive. That identity still believes peace depends upon predicting every outcome. It still believes safety requires control. It may tell you to analyze one more conversation. It may ask you to revisit one more memory. It may suggest that understanding every detail will finally create freedom. But information cannot release a vow that was formed emotionally. You could learn every motive behind what happened and still remain trapped if your heart continues obeying the promise made during the wound. This is why explanations have not satisfied you. Each answer created another question. Each discovery produced another detail to examine. Your mind was searching for a level of certainty that the past could never provide. Closure does not come when every question is answered. Closure comes when unanswered questions lose the authority to control your direction. You may never know every conversation, motive, or hidden decision. You do not need complete information to recognize a repeated pattern. You do not need another confession to honor what your spirit already witnessed. You do not need their agreement before truth becomes true. For too long, you made your freedom dependent upon someone else becoming honest. You waited for acknowledgement. You believed an apology would return the parts of you that felt lost. An apology may bring comfort. Accountability may confirm what you already know. But neither one can create the identity required for your next season. That work is happening between you and God. You have been asking the past to release you. The deeper truth is that you now hold the key. The door behind you is closed, but your attention remains near it, because part of you still expects an old voice to announce your value. Chosen one, they cannot give you what God is restoring. Their recognition would not change the years you survived. Their regret would not become the foundation of your future. Even if they returned with perfect words, you would still need discernment. You would still need boundaries. You would still need to decide whether their behavior had developed the capacity to carry what their language promised. This is not bitterness. It is maturity. Love may listen to words, but wisdom studies fruit. A changed explanation is not always a changed pattern. You are no longer required to become impressed by potential. You are allowed to honor consistency. You are allowed to let time reveal whether transformation is genuine. The old identity feared losing people. The new identity fears losing alignment. This does not make you cold. It means your peace is no longer available as payment for temporary connection. You have apologized for your boundaries long enough. You have explained your exhaustion to people who benefited from it. You have carried guilt for choosing the same peace they repeatedly refused to protect. That guilt ends here. You are not wrong for needing clarity. You are not difficult because confusion no longer feels romantic. You are not selfish because mutual effort has become a requirement. The hidden agreement says you must remain small to remain connected. It says your needs create danger. It says honesty will cause abandonment. That agreement did not begin with the last chapter. The last chapter only revealed it. It exposed how quickly you silenced yourself when connection appeared threatened. God allowed the exposure because the agreement could not enter your new beginning unnoticed. If it remained hidden, you would rebuild the same cycle with different people. You would call overgiving generosity. You would call fear discernment. You would call inconsistency mystery. You would call emotional hunger chemistry. The names would sound beautiful, but the fruit would remain the same. You would become tired. Your creativity would shrink. Your attention would scatter. Then you would ask why a new chapter felt exactly like the old one. God is preventing that repetition now. The delay has been protecting you from entering the next room before your inner agreement changed. This is not a punishment, it is precision. Heaven is addressing the root instead of decorating the branches. God is not giving you a temporary distraction from pain. He is forming a person who no longer needs pain to recognize love. Say this quietly within yourself. I do not need confusion to feel chosen. I do not need rejection to prove my loyalty. I do not need to earn what healthy connection gives freely. Let those words reach the places that still expect struggle. Your life is not becoming empty because the battle is ending. You are becoming available for a form of peace. Your survival identity did not know how to recognize. The third sign that the old chapter is complete is now clear. You lose the need to prove, punish, defend, or receive understanding from the people behind you. Their recognition stops being the price of your freedom. You may still desire justice. You may still value accountability, but you no longer organize your days around whether they finally see the truth. This is closure. It is not the absence of memory. It is the absence of emotional dependence upon a different ending. You stop rehearsing what you would say. You stop checking whether they are suffering. You stop imagining that their regret will heal your heart. Their journey returns to them. Your attention returns to you. Energy once spent watching the closed door becomes available for purpose, creativity, rest, and new connection. Now the first question from the beginning can be answered. Why did God end the chapter you kept asking Him to save? He ended it because preserving that chapter required preserving an identity built around self-abandonment. The chapter demanded a smaller voice. Your next season requires truth. The chapter rewarded endurance without boundaries. Your next season requires discernment. The chapter kept you seeking confirmation from people. Your next season requires an identity anchored before approval arrives. God was not only separating you from an environment, He was separating your destiny from the rules that environment taught you. You thought the ending meant you were not enough. The truth is that you were becoming too awake to keep surviving through denial. Your spirit could no longer sleep inside a pattern your calling had already outgrown. God did not close the door because nothing good had ever existed there. He closed it because goodness alone could not repair the structure. Beautiful memories could not become a substitute for present truth. He saw that another return would create another cycle. Another promise would create another waiting season. Another temporary improvement would ask you to silence the same discernment. So heaven answered with finality. The ending felt severe because your attachment was deep, but finality was mercy. A partially open door would have kept you negotiating. God knew you needed a new beginning, not a repaired version of your captivity, not another arrangement where you carried all the emotional weight. You needed a beginning built upon truth from its first foundation. Understand this clearly. The reason for the ending was protection. What God protected was your identity. The thing you must release is not only the person, position, or plan. You must release the rule that pain created. You must release the belief that love requires self-abandonment. You must release the version of strength that never allows support. And who are you becoming now? You are becoming a cycle breaker who can remember without returning. You are becoming a chosen one who can love without losing discernment. You are becoming someone who can receive peace without creating a problem to test it. You are becoming someone who no longer needs the past to approve the future. Remember the restoration tool mentioned earlier. The time has come to explain why it was connected to this message. The old chapter did not only occupy your emotions, it occupied your attention. It trained your mind to repeat questions, scan for danger, and delay decisions. Even after truth became visible, mental noise made obedience feel harder than it needed to feel. Chosen ones often remember a time when clarity felt natural. As children, they learned quickly. They noticed patterns. They felt truth before anyone explained it. Over time, pressure, disappointment, education, responsibility, and repeated stress can bury that natural sharpness beneath mental noise. The gift does not necessarily disappear. Access to it becomes harder. Researchers have studied gamma activity in connection with focused attention, learning, integration, and moments of unusual clarity. Dr. Robert Lake devoted decades to exploring how guided audio patterns might support the brain in returning toward that state. His approach uses brain entrainment. Carefully arranged sound enters through stereo headphones and gives attention a repeated rhythm to follow. The purpose is not to create a new identity. It is designed to support access to clarity that may already exist beneath years of noise. This distinction matters. A tool cannot give you a calling. It may help create a quieter internal space where you can respond to the calling more clearly. Think about the 43-year-old teacher from Texas. She spent years helping other people discover their abilities, while privately feeling that her own mind was operating far below its potential. She could teach, she could encourage, she could recognize possibility in everyone except herself. After using the audio consistently for 3 weeks, she described ideas arriving more naturally. A decision delayed for nearly a year became clear during one morning. The audio did not make the decision for her. It helped support the mental space in which she could finally hear what had been buried beneath constant responsibility. Another woman was 47 and worked as a manager in finance. She used the audio for 18 days without noticing anything dramatic. Around day 20, she nearly requested a refund. She continued for 2 more weeks from curiosity rather than confidence. On day 34, she realized the change had been happening quietly. Her sleep had improved. She had stopped feeling trapped at work. A decision about advancement had already been made without the usual weeks of hesitation. There was no dramatic moment. There was only a morning when she recognized that her internal baseline had changed. This story matters because restoration does not move at the same speed for everyone. Some people feel a difference during the first session. Many notice the first measurable shift between 11 and 21 days. A smaller group may need more than 30 days. This is not a pill. It is not an instant miracle. It is a reconditioning tool, and consistency matters more than intensity. You may be thinking that you have tried meditation, yoga, spiritual retreats, and calming audio before. Your caution is reasonable. Disappointment teaches intelligent people to examine every promise carefully. The distinction described here is the mechanism. Many practices ask the mind to create a state through effort. Brain entrainment uses external sound patterns intended to guide attention toward a specific rhythm. You do not need to accept a dramatic claim. You can evaluate whether the approach makes sense for your needs. The product has been used by 18,366 people, and the reported refund level is below 4%. Those figures do not guarantee an identical experience for everyone. They do suggest that most people who began the process chose to continue beyond the guarantee period. The tool is called the Genius Song. It is a 7-minute digital audio experience. Use stereo headphones or stereo earbuds because the left and right channels carry the sound pattern separately. Sit upright in a quiet space. Close your eyes or soften your gaze. Morning use is preferred, although early evening can also work for people who find that rhythm more comfortable. Listen once per day at most. Do not drive, read, work, or use your phone during the session. Give the 7 minutes your full attention. The first sensation may simply feel like relaxed heaviness. Some people describe calm alertness after a few minutes. Do not expect visions or dramatic experiences. The change may appear through easier decisions, quieter thoughts, deeper sleep, or greater emotional steadiness. Small changes deserve attention because sustainable restoration often arrives before dramatic evidence. You may also be thinking that $39 is not a small decision. That concern deserves respect. No honest person should dismiss the financial reality of another household. Consider the alternatives many people already use. A meditation application may cost about $15 each month. Online growth courses often cost $100 to $200. A single therapy session may cost around $150. A weekend spiritual retreat can range from $400 to $800. Professional biofeedback may cost around $300 for one session. These options can offer different forms of value, but they do not necessarily focus specifically upon gamma activity. Dr. Robert Lake originally placed the audio at $49. For people arriving through this message, the current access level is $39 as a single payment. There is no monthly subscription. Delivery is digital, so there is no shipping cost or waiting period. The audio is delivered through email after access is completed. The core audio also comes with 4 additional resources. Genius Child is a 6-minute audio designed with younger listeners in mind, and its separate value is $19. The classic book is the original work connected with ideas that later inspired The Secret, and its listed value is $20. The guided visualization provides 22 minutes across finances, love, health, and happiness, with a value of $29. The 5-habit infographic presents practical habits intended to support long-term consistency, and its value is $12. Together, the 4 bonuses carry a stated value of $80. They are included with the $39 access level. More importantly, the guarantee has been structured to reduce the fear of trying. You have 90 days to evaluate your experience. If it does not align with what you expected, you can request a full refund without returning anything. The audio is digital, so there is nothing physical to send back. You also keep all 4 bonuses, including the full $80 in additional material. That policy is intended to honor the time you invested. It does not require you to pretend a result. It gives your decision room to be honest. Do not create false pressure around this moment. The audio is digital. There are no imaginary limited copies. The urgency is not about inventory. The real cost of waiting is another day where mental noise decides before clarity can speak. Another day of postponed obedience is not neutral when you already know what the old chapter has been costing. Your future self may remember this as the moment when you stopped carrying yesterday into every decision. The step does not need to feel dramatic. It only needs to be aligned. There is one protection you must understand. Imitation pages and ordinary audio files use the same name across online marketplaces. Some copies contain music, but do not contain the intended brain entrainment structure. Do not search for it through Amazon, YouTube, Spotify, or unrelated websites. The verified version with the 4 bonuses and the 90-day guarantee is available only through the path placed in the description and the pinned comment. The Genius song should appear no more mysterious than it is. It is a 7-minute audio tool offered as support for clarity. It is not a replacement for God, personal responsibility, wise counsel, or necessary professional care. Pause now. Take one slow breath. Let your hand rest over your heart for a moment. This decision is not a judgment about your worth. Ask one honest question. Am I willing to support the person I am becoming, or will I continue asking an exhausted identity to lead every new beginning? If your answer is clear, the verified path is waiting in the description and the pinned comment. Follow it when you are ready. Let your choice come from alignment, not pressure. The tool can support attention, but it cannot release the vow for you. That decision remains sacred. You must decide that an expired fear will no longer author your future. The chapter is complete. The hidden agreement has been named. Now the new beginning must be sealed through a different response. You are not returning to prove that you could have saved what ended. You are moving forward because God has already shown you what remaining would cost. The door ahead does not require a perfect person. It requires an honest one. It requires someone willing to carry wisdom without carrying the wound as identity. Chosen one. Breathe again. The past has taught what it came to teach. The next step is no longer about understanding why they did what they did. It is about agreeing with what God is doing now. You have been released from the chapter. The final work is allowing the chapter to be released from you. Chosen one, the old chapter has now been placed where it belongs. The door is behind you. The agreement formed through pain has been named. You do not need to keep standing at the threshold as if the past still possesses authority over your next step. This is the moment when movement becomes possible. Not frantic movement, not the desperate search for something to replace what ended. This is movement born from clarity, peace, and the quiet knowledge that God is not asking you to return. You are not beginning from nothing, you are beginning from wisdom. You carry lessons that can protect your future without controlling it. You carry discernment that can recognize patterns without assuming every person will repeat them. You carry compassion that survived disappointment. You carry a heart that still knows how to care. The chapter tested your tenderness, but it did not destroy it. That tenderness will enter the new season with boundaries, truth, and greater spiritual maturity. The new beginning may not arrive with noise. It may begin through an ordinary morning. You wake up and realize the first thought in your mind is no longer connected to what ended. You may notice that your body feels lighter. The memory is still present, but it no longer controls the atmosphere. You can remember without losing the entire day. That quiet change matters. Freedom often appears before circumstances visibly shift. It begins when your internal response changes. The same name can appear, but your peace remains. The same memory can return, but your attention does not follow it into another hour of analysis. The old trigger knocks, yet the new identity decides whether the door opens. This is how you will know restoration is becoming real. You stop needing dramatic evidence. You begin noticing the small places where fear has lost authority. A delayed message no longer becomes a verdict about your value. A closed opportunity no longer convinces you that purpose has disappeared. A misunderstanding no longer demands an immediate defense. You remain present. You breathe. You ask whether the situation belongs to your assignment. Then you choose from truth instead of reacting from memory. This is the rhythm of the new beginning. It does not promise that no difficulty will appear. It promises that difficulty will no longer meet the same version of you. The old you believed every problem had to be solved immediately. The new you understands that some problems reveal themselves when you stop chasing them. The old you feared silence because silence felt like rejection. The new you recognizes that silence can create enough space for motives, patterns, and truth to become visible. The old you kept explaining because misunderstanding felt dangerous. The new you knows that a person committed to misunderstanding will use every explanation as another place to create confusion. You do not need to win every argument. You do not need to correct every story. Your life can become the answer that words could never provide. This is detachment. It is the first movement of your transformation. Detachment does not erase love. It removes the demand that love must control the outcome. You can care without chasing. You can forgive without reopening access. You can honor what happened without rebuilding the environment where it happened. You can pray for another person without making their transformation your responsibility. You can wish them peace while protecting your own. You can bless their future without assigning them a place in yours. Detachment returns responsibility to its proper owner. Their choices belong to them. Their healing belongs to them. Their willingness to face truth belongs to them. Your obedience belongs to you. Your boundaries belong to you. Your response to the lesson belongs to you. This is where your authority begins. For too long, your emotions were tied to decisions you could not control. You waited for people to choose honesty. You waited for circumstances to validate your sacrifice. Now you are releasing those outcomes. You are not releasing hope. You are releasing control, disguised as hope. You no longer need a specific person to become the answer. You no longer need a specific opportunity to prove the promise. God can preserve purpose while changing every detail of the path. The second movement is clearing. God is clearing the inner room where the old chapter continued living. He is removing the conversations you rehearsed, the imagined endings you revised, and the accusations you carried against yourself. Clearing may require practical choices. You may need to remove access to something that repeatedly disturbs your peace. You may need to stop revisiting a page, message, photograph, or place. These actions are not punishment. They are stewardship. You are protecting attention that has finally begun returning to you. Your attention is sacred because it feeds whatever receives it. If you feed an expired chapter every morning, it will continue producing emotion even without a real relationship. If you feed the new beginning through prayer, truth, rest, creativity, and aligned action, another emotional landscape will slowly form. What you nourish will become stronger. Clearing also means releasing shame. You may feel embarrassed that you remained so long. You may question why you ignored certain signs. Do not use present wisdom to attack the person you were before that wisdom existed. You made decisions using the understanding, hope, and emotional resources available at that time. You were trying to preserve something you valued. You were trying to believe the best. Those qualities are not shameful. What matters is that you now see more clearly. Wisdom becomes useful when it changes the next decision. It does not need to become a weapon against your past self. Offer that version of you compassion. They carried more than anyone knew. They remained hopeful because surrender felt like the death of a dream. Tell them the dream is not dead, its form has changed. The desire for love, purpose, belonging, stability, and peace remains worthy. God is separating that desire from the place where you believed it had to be fulfilled. This separation protects the desire from becoming buried with the old chapter. The third movement is accelerated fulfillment. This does not mean every answer appears instantly. It means clarity reduces the delay created by internal conflict. When your spirit and your decisions move together, energy once spent debating becomes available for obedience. You stop asking the same question after truth has already answered. You recognize the instruction. You take the next honest step. Then you allow the road to reveal itself without demanding that the first step explain the entire journey. This is how acceleration often begins. It is not always a sudden event. It is the end of unnecessary hesitation. A decision that once required months may become clear in one morning. A boundary you postponed may finally become simple. An opportunity you overlooked may become visible because your attention is no longer facing backward. You may discover that the new beginning was not absent. It was waiting for emotional space. God was not withholding the next chapter. He was protecting it from being interpreted through not identity formed by the previous one. Now the space is opening. Do not fill it too quickly. Emptiness can be holy before it becomes visible provision. Allow yourself to experience days that do not contain emotional emergencies. Let calm become normal. Let rest teach you that your value does not disappear when no one needs rescuing. At first, you may feel unproductive. You may wonder what to do with energy that once belonged to crisis. This is where creativity can return. Ideas may begin appearing again. Desires you buried may become audible. You may remember abilities that were neglected while you managed the needs of everyone around you. Do not dismiss those returning desires. Examine them with wisdom. Some may be invitations into work, service, study, travel, community, or creation. The new beginning may involve a relationship, but it is larger than a relationship. It may involve financial change, but it is larger than money. It is the restoration of your ability to respond to life without the old chapter choosing first. It is the return of internal freedom. The fourth movement is generational legacy. Your release is not only personal. Every pattern you end changes what becomes normal for those who observe your life. Children may learn that love does not require silence. Family members may discover that boundaries can exist without hatred. People connected to you may see that starting again is not failure. Your courage gives language to someone who has been afraid to name their own exhaustion. Your healing becomes evidence that a person can leave a cycle without losing compassion. You are not responsible for forcing everyone to follow. A cycle breaker does not drag an entire family into transformation. A cycle breaker becomes the first person willing to live differently. Some will understand later, some may never understand. Your assignment does not depend upon unanimous approval. The pattern ends when you stop feeding it. The old rule loses power when your decisions no longer obey it. This is legacy before anyone celebrates it. You may be the first person in your family to choose peace without apology. You may be the first to call confusion by its correct name. You may be the first to refuse connection that requires self-abandonment. That refusal creates another possibility for everyone who comes after you. Do not underestimate this quiet work. Heaven measures differently from the world. A boundary no one applauds can protect decades of future peace. A decision made alone can redirect an entire bloodline. A truthful conversation can end a tradition of hidden pain. Your new beginning is not small simply because it begins privately. Seeds begin under soil. Transformation often becomes strong before it becomes visible. There is a period when no one sees what is changing. They only notice that you respond differently. They notice you no longer join familiar arguments. They notice guilt does not move you as quickly. They notice you have become slower to promise and more consistent after you commit. Some people will respect the change. Others will test it. The tests do not mean the boundary is wrong. A new boundary often reveals who was depending upon its absence. Their reaction is information. Receive it without allowing it to become your identity. You do not need to become harsh. Speak clearly. Remain calm. Let your no become complete without becoming cruel. You can say no without a long defense. You can leave a conversation that abandons respect. You can pause before answering a request. Every pause is evidence that automatic survival is losing control. You are learning to choose instead of react. In the next 14 to 72 hours, notice the small confirmations around you. Do not demand a dramatic sign. Pay attention to shifts that carry peace. A conversation may feel different. Someone may reveal their intentions without being questioned. An idea may return with unusual clarity. A decision you postponed may suddenly feel simple. A situation that once triggered, you may no longer possess the same emotional power. You may receive an invitation, message, or opportunity. Examine its fruit. Do not call every open door divine, but do not reject goodness merely because it feels unfamiliar. Ask whether peace remains when excitement settles. Ask whether the opportunity allows truth, dignity, responsibility, and growth. Ask whether you can enter without betraying the person God has been forming. These questions will protect you without forcing you to live behind a wall. You may also experience no external sign during those hours. That does not mean nothing changed. The most important confirmation may be internal. You may sleep more peacefully. You may stop checking for something. You may feel less interested in explaining yourself. This internal movement is not lesser evidence. It is the foundation upon which visible change can safely rest. Do not measure the new beginning only through external rewards. Measure it through the authority your old triggers have lost. Measure it through the time returned to your attention. Measure it through your willingness to receive support. Measure it through the peace that remains after you choose truth. You have spent enough time asking whether they regret losing you. Ask another question now. Are you willing to stop losing yourself? That question leads forward. It places responsibility where transformation can occur. It removes your future from the hands of people who may never become accountable. You cannot control whether they remember your value. You can control whether you continue treating their blindness as evidence against yourself. Their inability to honor you did not reduce what you carried. A closed eye does not remove the light. It only prevents the person closing it from receiving what was present. You no longer need to convince them. Let distance reveal what proximity allowed them to overlook. Let your silence complete what explanation could not. Your silence is not revenge, it is space. Inside that space, everyone becomes responsible for their own truth. You are responsible for the life ahead. That life needs your attention. It needs your courage. It needs your willingness to begin before every feeling becomes comfortable. Waiting for complete emotional certainty can become another form of delay. Some grief may travel with you for a while. It does not need to drive. Let grief sit beside wisdom. Let memory walk behind purpose. Let peace hold the map. You can move while healing continues. You can build while some questions remain unanswered. Your future does not require the past to become perfectly organized. Chosen one, take a slow breath now. Let the air enter gently. Let your shoulders release the weight they have been trained to hold. Place one hand over your heart if that feels natural. Do not force emotion. Simply become present with the life that remains within you. Your heart continued beating through every ending. It carried grief, confusion, hope, and disappointment. It did not abandon you. Honor that faithfulness. Your body brought you through nights your mind believed would never end. You are here now. You survived the chapter. But survival is no longer the final goal. You are being invited to live. Living will feel different. It will require presence. It will ask you to enjoy something without predicting when it will disappear. It will ask you to receive a kind word without searching for manipulation. It will ask you to rest without earning it first. Living will ask you to become visible again. The old chapter may have taught you to hide your gifts because visibility attracted pressure or judgment. The new beginning will teach you that the correct environment does not punish your light. It gives that light direction. You do not need to enter every room. You do not need to become available to everyone. Purpose is not endless exposure. Purpose is aligned service. It is giving from fullness instead of giving from fear. It is knowing when your presence is assigned and when your absence is protection. You will begin sensing this difference. Some rooms will feel impressive but empty. Other rooms may look ordinary yet carry unusual peace. Choose fruit over appearance. Choose truth over performance. Choose alignment over the need to be seen. The old chapter often made you work for visibility. You had to explain, produce, sacrifice, or prove. The new beginning will not require you to audition for what already recognizes your value. This does not mean effort disappears. Healthy things require participation, but effort will no longer be used to compensate for another person's unwillingness. Mutual relationships share responsibility. Aligned opportunities honor contribution. Safe communities allow honesty without making belonging disappear. Let these truths reset your expectations. You are not asking for perfection. You are asking for integrity. You are not demanding that no mistake ever occurs. You are requiring repair when mistakes happen. You are requiring words and behavior to move in the same direction. These standards are not too high. They are the foundation your next chapter needs. What God builds through truth does not need confusion to remain interesting. Peace may initially feel less intense. Give it time. Intensity often creates immediate emotion, while consistency creates lasting safety. You are learning to value what remains. Anyone can create a powerful beginning. Character is revealed through what continues after attention, excitement, and convenience change. The next chapter will teach you endurance of another kind. Not endurance inside mistreatment. Endurance inside healthy growth. You will learn how to remain when peace feels unfamiliar. You will learn how to communicate instead of withdrawing. You will learn how to receive correction without hearing rejection. This is the balanced work of restoration. You are not moving from overgiving into isolation. You are moving from self-abandonment into mutuality. You are not moving from blind trust into permanent suspicion. You are moving into discernment. You are not moving from love into coldness. You are moving into love guided by truth. This is how the cycle ends without your heart becoming hardened. The enemy of your future would prefer one of two extremes. It would keep you trapped inside the old pattern, or it would make you so bitter that nothing new could reach you. God is leading you through the narrow path between them. You will remember without worshipping memory. You will forgive without denying consequences. You will remain open without becoming unguarded. You will become wise without becoming cruel. This balanced identity is powerful because it cannot be controlled through guilt or fear. It does not need to punish. It simply chooses alignment. The people connected to your future will recognize this stability. They will not require you to become smaller. They will not feed upon confusion. They may challenge you, but healthy challenge produces growth rather than chronic self-doubt. You will know the difference by the fruit. Keep returning to fruit. Does the connection produce peace, truth, courage, responsibility, and mutual growth? Or does it repeatedly produce confusion, exhaustion, fear, and self-abandonment? You have enough wisdom to ask these questions now. That wisdom came through a chapter you once believed had ruined everything. Nothing was wasted. Even the pain became instruction after truth entered it. The tears watered discernment. The silence developed inner hearing. The closed door taught you that divine protection does not always resemble the answer you requested. You can now bless the chapter without returning. Bless the love that was real. Bless the lessons that became wisdom. Bless the version of you who survived. Bless the people involved. Then return their journey to God. You are not their judge. You are not their rescuer. You are not required to remain emotionally attached, so forgiveness can be considered genuine. Forgiveness releases the debt from controlling your heart. It does not erase wisdom. It does not require unsafe access. Now let us seal this movement with honest words. Speak slowly. Do not rush through them. Let each sentence become an agreement with the identity being formed. I release what God has completed. I stop asking an expired chapter to explain my value. I bless what was, but I do not return. I release the need to prove my heart. I release the conversations that never happened. I release every imagined ending that keeps my attention behind me. I forgive myself for staying longer than I now understand. I honor the person I was. I refuse to use new wisdom as a weapon against my past. I release the vow that says I must never need anyone. I can receive support without losing strength. I can trust slowly without abandoning discernment. I release the vow that says love must hurt to be real. I receive connection built upon honesty, consistency, responsibility, and peace. I release the vow that says silence means rejection. I allow quietness to become a place of clarity. I no longer create chaos to make life feel familiar. I release the belief that one ending defines every future. The past is a teacher. It is not a prophet over my destiny. I refuse to carry expired fear into a new season. I will not make innocent people pay for wounds they did not create. I will also not ignore truth to keep anyone comfortable. I receive wisdom without bitterness. I receive boundaries without guilt. I receive rest without believing I must earn it. I receive the courage to begin again. I do not need the entire map. I need enough light for the next faithful step. I trust that God can preserve the promise while changing the path. I trust that what belongs in my future will not require the destruction of my identity. I am not abandoned. I am being reassigned. I am not beginning from nothing. I am beginning from wisdom. I am a cycle breaker. Confusion will not become my inheritance. Self-abandonment will not become my legacy. My compassion will remain, but fear will no longer direct it. My heart will remain open, but truth will guard its access. I release every person whose assignment has ended. I release every opportunity whose season is complete. I release every version of myself built only for survival. I welcome the person God is forming now. I welcome clarity. I welcome aligned movement. I welcome peace that does not need to explain itself. I am ready for the beginning prepared for me. I am ready to live without facing backward. I am ready to receive without apologizing for my worth. Take another breath. Let those words settle. You do not have to create a dramatic feeling. Agreement can be quiet. A seed does not make noise when it enters the ground. The power is in what begins growing after the moment passes. When an old thought returns, repeat the truth. The chapter is complete. When guilt appears, remember that boundaries are not betrayal. When nostalgia edits the past, remember the whole story. When fear predicts another ending, return to the present evidence. This practice is how new identity becomes stable, one truthful response at a time, one boundary at a time, one peaceful decision at a time. Do not despise repetition. The old pattern became strong through repetition, and truth will become familiar through repetition as well. You may have difficult days. A difficult day does not cancel transformation. A memory may hurt again. Pain returning does not mean the chapter reopened. It means another layer is ready to receive truth. Meet that layer with compassion. Do not panic. Do not contact the past only to silence a temporary feeling. Let the feeling move through without becoming action. It will pass. Your direction can remain. The new beginning is not fragile. It will not disappear because you experienced one sad evening. God is not measuring your healing through perfect emotion. He is teaching you how to return to truth. Each return strengthens the path. Each honest choice becomes part of your new foundation. Soon, you will notice that returning to truth requires less effort. Peace will become more familiar. The old reaction will lose speed. Then one day, you will remember the chapter and realize it no longer feels like home. You will be grateful for what you learned, but you will not wish to live there again. That moment is coming quietly. Do not chase it. Continue choosing what is true, and let freedom become natural. Your future does not need you to arrive without scars. It needs you to arrive without worshipping them. Scars can become testimony without becoming identity. You are more than what happened. You are more than what ended. You are more than the people who failed to recognize you. You are the person who remained tender while learning wisdom. You are the person who found truth beneath confusion. You are the person who can now offer another generation a different pattern. This is your new beginning. It begins before the new relationship, position, opportunity, or visible reward. It begins with the authority to choose differently. If these words have become your agreement, write, "I receive my new beginning" in the comments. Let it be a simple public marker of a private decision. Subscribe and remain connected if these messages help you walk through transition with truth. Share this message with someone still blaming themselves for a door God closed in mercy. Let the like become a signal that another chosen one needs this reminder. Someone is still standing before an expired chapter, believing its ending proves they were forgotten. Your action may help this message reach them. Do it from compassion, not performance. Let your freedom become a light for someone still learning how to release. Chosen one, the old chapter has ended. You do not need to reopen it. You do not need to prove that you could have saved it. God saw what you could not see. He knew what remaining would cost. He knew your tenderness needed protection, your attention needed restoration, and your identity needed room to grow. He did not end your story. He ended the structure that could no longer carry it. He did not take away your future. He removed what kept you facing backward. The road ahead is not empty. It is waiting for your presence. Walk slowly if you need to. Walk with tears if they come, but walk forward. You have blessed the lesson. You have released the wound. You have cancelled the promise made in pain. Now let peace become your direction. Let truth become your foundation. Let God become greater than the form you lost. The chapter is complete. The door is closed. Your calling remains alive. God ended that chapter because He knew you